Good afternoon, everyone, and let me take a chance to welcome you in city of Kaunas once again. And thank you for Kaunas for the hospitality. I hope that everyone is happy and full after the lunch. And I would like to remind you that we will have few presentations, so you have a chance to ask speakers questions that you are interested in after each presentation. And please don't be shy. Just raise your hand and ask the questions. And as Helen and Rugila already mentioned, we will have a few presentations from four beautiful countries, also from countries that Lithuania has learned a lot, because I think I could mention several examples of practical things, services and programs that we took from Norway, also from Iceland and from other Nordic countries. And therefore, I hope that all the presentations that we will have today will bring more inspiration for our daily work. And at the same time, I also want to say hello to all the experts that you are, because every one of you is working daily with children and youth, and I was so happy to see so many colleagues from child rights protection, territorial units, from children's social care homes, from municipalities, and it always makes me so happy to see so many familiar faces, and every one of you is always an inspiration. So, and let's move then to our presentations, and I would like to invite all the guests, our experts from other countries, who I will invite to join me. And we have three experts together with us in person and one that will join us online. And I would like to invite to the stage, first of all, Thov Midtsund Nordbø. I'm really sorry if I pronounce it wrong. Yes, who is the senior advisor of the Office of Ombudsperson in Norway. So please welcome Thov. Then we have a colleague from a country that I came back from study visits last week, and I think I still live in a totally inspired days, because all the colleagues were wonderful and the country itself is so beautiful. So I would like to invite Eyglo Hardardottir from Iceland, from beautiful Iceland, who is the lead on crime prevention, the National Commissioner of Icelandic Police. And then a colleague who I also met in person already, and when I saw her, I felt like I saw a friend of already long time. So it is a colleague from Ministry of Justice, Natalia Levenes-Straupmane, yes, the senior lawyer. And then we will also have a colleague from Finland who will join us online. It is Elina Pekkarinen, Ombudsperson for children. So please welcome all the speakers joining the stage. And before I will give the floor to them, I would like to make a short introduction into our, not only the first session, but into all sessions, because I think that the topic of the conference is really very important for Lithuania, because as many European countries, Lithuania faces very similar challenges. We get more and more children and young people with challenging, risky and dangerous behaviors. And the other problem is that the age of those children is getting younger and younger. And I think that Lithuania's response to juvenile delinquency is undergoing significant changes, but we also face a lot of ongoing challenges as well. And in line with many European countries, Lithuania tries to shift its response to children's and young people's challenging behaviors towards support, specialized services, and other help, rather than strict punishment. And this shift reflects a broader understanding that children, teenagers, young people are in critical stage of development where intervention can have a substantial impact on their future behavior and integration into society. Efforts to provide counseling, education, and other supportive services are crucial in promoting positive outcome, in reducing delinquent behavior and its progress into more serious crimes. And just to remind you all, Lithuania's age of criminal responsibility is set at 16 years old, but we have some exceptions in the law that allows prosecution from 14 years of old when we have cases of very, very serious crimes. And Lithuanian framework of juvenile justice is generally in line with the European norms, but it also raises questions about how younger offenders are handled and what measures are in place to prevent their deeper involvement in criminal activities. Also, we try to align all of our laws with one of the most important documents that I am sure you all are aware of, which is United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And when it comes to steps in which Lithuania is directing its support to children and young people with challenging behaviors, it is worth mentioning that there are efforts to put more focus on prevention and early intervention. So Lithuania recognizes that addressing the root causes of delinquency is really crucial part. And we try to find programs and services that focus on young persons' development, education, family support, and community engagement. And I think that I can mention a few examples, so probably all of you, I hope you already heard, especially everyone who was in any contact with me, for sure heard about it, because I always speak about it. In 2020, we started to implement in Lithuania multidimensional family therapy program, or MDFT program in short. And I would like to take a chance and say a big thank you to Estonia, who helped us to bring MDFT program to Lithuania, because this is one of the most inspiring and most successful service that we have for young people and children with behavioral problems. Also, not very long time ago, we made some changes to the social services law, and we established new form of services, which are preventive social services. And I think that this change to the law gives more freedom and more opportunities for the local municipalities to be creative and to invest in new services that focus not on the interventions, but also on the prevention of different problems, including juvenile delinquency. Also, as you probably all know, in all municipalities in Lithuania, within European funds, we finance complex services for all families and children without any exceptions. So families and children have better access to services, including preventive services. And then we also have another evidence-based program, which is Family Conference. And I really encourage all the municipalities to use Family Conference more, because it is available to all municipalities in Lithuania. We have enough Family Conference specialists prepared. So also don't be shy and use that in your direct work. And education is seen as an important part too, as education plays a vital role in shaping behavior. Lithuania has introduced programs in schools to promote positive behavior, social skills, and conflict resolution. And these programs aim to foster a sense of responsibility and community among young people, reducing the likelihood of delinquent acts. And one of the newest programs introduced in schools is Life Skills Development Program. And also there are other 21 preventive programs available to schools and approved by the Ministry of Education, Science and Sports, from which every school can choose a program that they like the best. And together with the colleagues from Ministry of Education and from other ministries, we have currently discussions on how to strengthen and improve work of our socialization centers that are closed type institutions for children with big behavioral problems, because although the aim of such centers is to help the child to change the behavior, the current content and available support to children in these centers must be improved significantly. And I think I could speak about other examples even more. And with me, it is always like that I can speak for hours about my work. But I don't want to take too much time from my colleagues. So I think we can move to our presentations. And the first speaker whom I like to introduce is Finnish Ombudsperson for Child Rights, Elina Pekkarinen, and she will have a presentation about youth delinquency in Finland, and she will speak about methods that Finland is using to help young people who are doing crimes for the first time and who are also doing crimes repeatedly. And very short, to say a few words about Elina. Elina has a background in academia and social work. She has done research on example child protection and youth crime, and acted an expert in various fields of child welfare, including in the Administrative Court of Helsinki. And currently, Elina is also the pre-elect chair of European Network of Ombudspersons for Children, which is INOC. So Elina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kristina, and so nice to be here. Unfortunately, not there physically present, but emotionally very intact to you. And also, I feel your good spirit in your conference. Many congratulations for having it. As you, Kristina, said, the topic is really timely, and at least here in Finland, the discussion around children's criminal behavior is really heated and really daily too. But I would like to tell you about few solutions we have done here in Finland to tackle the phenomena of youth crime. But first, I have to start with telling about children with offending behavior here in Finland. Kristina, you told us that in Lithuania, the age for criminal responsibility is 16. Here in Finland, children under 15 years of age are regarded as incapable of crime. So we have a little bit lower age limit. When it comes to serious crimes, we still have that 15 limit. So we don't have this 2 threshold system as I understood you have in Lithuania and many other countries as well. However, if a child younger than the age of 15 does a criminal act, the municipal child welfare will react. Nowadays, it's not municipal anymore, it's an aerial child protection system. But regardless of that, the child welfare agencies will react to criminal behavior regardless of age. The 15 to 17-year-olds, they are subject to the Young Offenders Act, which means that the sanctions are lower to them than for adults. But child welfare is active among those minors as well. And the division of labor between the child welfare and criminal sanction system, in spite of this simultaneous contact happens, the problem actually in the system is that the criminal sanction system and the child welfare system do not collaborate as much as they probably should. And social workers then consider further procedures that are described in the Child Welfare Act. And the most serious of these procedures is taking the child into care. Well, we are discussing the increase of criminal behavior among children a lot, but when you look into the self-reported crime, actually there has been a decrease of criminal behavior among young people in all the levels or all the forms of criminal behavior: shoplifting, property crime, violent crimes, and using marijuana or hash have all decreased um, in year 2020. However, after this, especially the degree of violent crimes has increased, and this increase can particularly be seen in the police registers. There are several explanations to that, not which of the smallest one is not the fact that our law changed in 2015 and everyone is responsible for contacting the police when a child is suspect of crime, of violent crime. However, there also is a phenomenon of these violent crimes getting more serious than before, and also the very small children, the ones that are 9 to 12-year-olds, also participating in violent acts. So what do we do here in Finland with young offenders? The child welfare operates independently from the criminal sanction system and vice versa. This has been the story since the end of the 1800 century. I have been participating in a study where we actually went through all the possible cases in the city of Helsinki where the child was below the age of 15, and we wanted to see how the child welfare system reacted to the criminal behavior. And in this, sorry to say, a little bit old study, we found that 40% of the first timers were actually contacted by the child welfare officers, and 90% of the children that were caught more than 4 times were targeted with quite intensive child welfare measures. The number of contacts also increased as a consequence of criminal behavior, and the likelihood of out-of-home care increased with the number of crimes. So one could say that the system in Finland has operated quite well. We have less than 10 children aged 15 to 17 years of age that are actually in prison as prisoners. And we also have this institutional care for adolescents that offend and have simultaneous issues at home, school, peer group, etc. But we don't have these closed care facilities for young people with criminal behavior, as I learned that many countries do, including Lithuania. But next I want to tell you about what the police has done with the first timers in Finland, because we have this anchor work that is led by the Finnish police. Its objective, of course, is to prevent youth crime and delinquency from happening in the start, and also combat social exclusion and extremism in the very beginning. It also provides multi-professional support and guidance for at-risk youth. So this multi-professionalism is the key word for anchor work. It is built on individualized engagement and support for the young person, and it uses several different early intervention strategies which are dependent on the child's needs. It also collaborates very closely with various stakeholders such as social work, youth work, school, etc. And it tries to provide low threshold services when the child needs them. The key components of this anchor work are personalized outreach and also mentorship for the child, identifying and also addressing the issues that underline this delinquent behavior, and the coordination with health and social services, youth work, and other community organizations like the NGOs is really important. And this anchor work is available on several regions in Finland, and it is funded by the Ministry of Interior, so the money comes directly from the state. Here you can see the model, which is actually built on first targeting the child that is doing the criminal act, and then doing the intervention, which is built of 1 to 5 times meeting with not only the young person, but his or her parents as well. And the anchor team works really closely with different professionals in the area. And if the child needs further support, that is applied for him or her. Well, the biggest advantages of this anchor model is that it is a network, and it uses the network to find the relevant authorities from the start for the child, and also the idea of this one-stop shop for these struggling adolescents and their families. The biggest risk, however, is an inadequate use of resources. It is really hard to target which children actually need the support from the anchor model and which ones actually either don't need it, or those for whom these 1 to 5 meetings is not enough. So effective targeting is really important for this anchor model. However, we have young people that continue doing crime, and we have young people that are in serious cycle of crime. Anchor work is not enough for them. And that is why in the Ministry of Justice, I was actually there as a researcher, making an operating model for those young people that are in serious cycle of criminal behavior. These are young people that are already in the criminal sanction system. If they are below the age of 15, they are really strongly the clients of child welfare work. But most of the young people that have entered this program are actually already in their 18s or 19s. The idea is to collect all the services in the local or regional unit, so that the responsibility of the child is actually given to one employee that is specialized in this one particular child and takes care, forms a trusting relationship to this young person. And the other employees and services that support the young person are linked to the model via this one employee who helps the young people to actually interact with the system. It focuses totally on the young person's needs and also the situation assessment. And this working group proposes sort of an organizing act that lays down provisions on the competence, cooperation, and responsibilities of this multi-professional and intersectional authority model. This model is piloted in 4 cities, and it is funded by the Ministry of Justice. This is a model that I actually drew to show the main idea of this system. A person walking by this young person's side, so that he or she does not have to interact with all these agents. He'll always have somebody who is also on his side. Well, pros and cons of this operating model for young people in serious cycle of criminal behavior. I think that the biggest advantage is that you have a person that walks along the young person in the very complex system of different services. It always makes me surprised how complex this system can actually be. And we have gained good results with young people who have repetitive criminal behavior. However, the biggest risk is how much time and commitment this system requires from the employee that is standing beside the young person. And that is also the biggest risk of the program not having enough staff and resources to actually do all the good work that it does. To conclude, as I said in the very beginning, and as you, Kristina, said, it was really interesting to hear, Finland is currently witnessing an increase in youth crime. And this increase in violent crime began in 2015, but the increase has been more rapid since 2020, since the COVID-19 period, and it has been particularly high among the children that are below the age of 15. Currently in Finland, the Russian crime leagues are not present anymore. So our streets are actually, they have space for new organized crime. And street crime that is copied and actually is imported from Sweden is alarming, and it is causing a lot of political debate. These criminal groups are also more interested in recruiting young people in their organizations than the former Eastern organizations were. Child welfare currently has inadequate means of dealing with young offenders, and one reason for that is that our young people have been behaving so well for the millennium decade. In 1990s and in 1980s, we had social workers that were specialized in crime, but nowadays it has not been as necessary. We also have a very large public discussion on lowering the age of criminal responsibility. And unfortunately, the majority of our people think that the age limit should be lowered. And this, of course, raises a lot of worries in us that act for the rights of the child. Because I think that strengthening the child welfare system and scaling up the diversion of children away from formal justice processes and towards these effective programs is and should be the key for tackling youth crime. I thank you for your interest, and I have also included some sources for you in this presentation that I will be dealing to all of you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Elina. I think that your presentation shows that different countries actually face very similar challenges. And very brief question to the audience. Does anyone have any questions to Elina? Yeah, here is one. Okay.
Hi, Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I'm from the Ministry of Justice of Estonia. My name is Eyglo Hardardottir. And I was wondering if you have a special treatment for young adults in Finland. How do you treat them? Do you, those people who offend, do you have special non-punitive measures or some other kind of treatment options? Thank you.
The situation of young adults is actually a bit tricky, and that is why this model that I told you about, the second one for the repetitive criminals, is actually in many cities where it is in use. It is actually applied for the young adults as well, because it has been really effective. However, it seems that the criminal sanction system is more and more activated, and our punishments are getting stricter, and also the time served in prison are getting longer. So I don't have too high hopes for psychosocial programs being applied in more often in Finland than before. Quite the contrary, it seems that the public opinion is towards punishing the criminals more than before.
And also Natalia has one question.
Yes, thank you very much. I have a question about the program Walking by One's Side. You were talking about, you mentioned that it's financed by the Ministry of Justice, but I would like to ask you, who is the employer, like where do those people, those employees who support these young offenders, are they employed on the municipal level, or are these employees of the Ministry of Justice, or maybe another option, like where do they work?
That is a really good question. The funding is supplied from the Ministry of Justice, and most of the groups that organize the actual work, I think, are NGOs that are collaborating with the city, so that it has a municipality and then these NGOs working side by side. And the assessment and follow-up of the program comes from the Ministry of Justice. And the budget, I think it has been several million euros currently, so it is quite a big funding that has been given annually for several years. So it's not a cheap program, but it is organized as effectively as it can by the people applying for it that already have some sort of an institutional presence in the community.
Okay, so thank you, Elina, once again. We now need to move to another presentation, but thank you for joining us online. And
thank you so much.
Yes, and and we are now moving from Ombudsperson office in Finland to Ombudsperson office in Norway. And I would like to give the floor to our colleague from Norway, Thov, the senior advisor of the Office of Ombudsperson in Norway. And he will have the presentation on the topic, if juvenile offenders in Norway have their rights fulfilled according to the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. It's very interesting to see how other countries deal with juvenile delinquency. In Norway, the Children Ombudsperson has our own law that gives us a very clear mandate to promote children's interest in society and to ensure that the obligation from the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child are followed in legislation when the politicians make new policies and out in the practice field. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, hereafter referred as CRC, was ratified in Norway in 1991 and incorporated into Norwegian law in 2003. As many of you know, the CRC contains of a variety of principal and basic rights that grants all children, regardless of where they live, the right to a safe upbringing. But the CRC also contains of some specific rights aimed at vulnerable groups, such as children who commit crimes, aimed at giving them some extra protection in certain circumstances. For instance, under interrogation or during trial. My presentation today is titled, "Do juvenile offenders in Norway have their rights fulfilled according to the CRC?" I would love to answer my own question with a big yes, but unfortunately I have to say no, we aren't quite there yet. Because there's a big difference between having a right on a piece of paper and having a right fulfilled in real life. We see that on many different areas in Norway. Article 37 and Article 40 gives guidance and obligations on how to treat children in conflict with the law. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child recommends that all member countries should have a juvenile justice system tailored to children's rights. We don't have that in Norway, but the recent years there has been some improvement that I will use my allotted time to tell you more about. In the recent years, we have been working a lot with Article 37 in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that states that imprisonment should only be used as a last resort. And what does this obligation entail for countries that have ratified the CRC? It means that we should try all other measures before we place children in prison or cells. In my presentation today, I would like to highlight 2 examples or success stories on how we have used a right-based approach in Norway to ensure better compliance with the CRC. At the end of my presentation, I will also briefly mention what kind of work we are working on today, also according to juvenile delinquency. But let me start with children in detention cells. As you can see, those 2 bullets shows you my 2 examples. In the early 2010s, the Children's Ombudsman in Norway got reports that many children were held in detention cells. At that time, there was little information and statistic about this group of children. Together with other advocacy organizations, we started to assess the extent of this issue. And a very important thing we did was to speak with the children themselves. What the children told us was that being placed in these detention cells was probably the worst thing they had ever experienced. Here you can see what the cell looks like, and no window, no clock. And what the children told us was that the feeling of isolation traumas came very quickly. Eventually, we got some information and statistics about this group of children, and as this slide shows you, it turns out that about 1,600 children were placed in detention cells that year. At the same time, the UN Committee Against Torture criticized Norway because the lack of statistic and overview regarding this issue. We used this criticism together with the CRC to challenge the practice in the light of the CRC. And we put a particular emphasis on the fact that we could not see from the documentation or information that other measures was tried before they were placed in detention cells. And as you can see, as a result of this influence work together with other organizations, the Norwegian prison authorities, they took action and implemented better procedures for the care of children in detention cells, as well as improved collaboration with the children welfare system. That resulted in a dramatic drop in children placed in detention cells. But despite these positive developments, we still see the need of less intrusive measures towards this group of children. And we are still concerned about these children who still sit in these detention cells are receiving child-friendly treatment. The second example I want to highlight is the introduction of separate penalties for minors in Norway. This statistics shows that the use of imprisonment was a quite common punitive measures for children from the millennium and the further years to come. But as you can see, also the drop of children being sentenced to prison has dropped dramatically. And you may wonder what happened. When the Convention on the Rights of the Child was incorporated into Norwegian law in 2003, it also helped or influenced our thinking about children and punishment. More attention was paid to children's rights and the obligation in the CRC, and the development of new measures, both on children and the adult population, were more focused on assistance and restorative justice rather than traditional punishment. And you see from 2012, there are almost no kids in Norwegian prisons, and these milestones was very important. In 2012, the threshold for imprisonment of children was raised in Norway, and in 2012, we got these new punitive measures for minors called youth punishment and youth follow-up. Youth punishment and youth follow-up were meant to replace imprisonment and were a very important follow-up of Article 37. Children sentenced to these punitive measures, they don't serve time behind bars, but they receive close follow-up in the municipality they live in. The intention of this sanction is to enable them to continue or to start up education or work, to receive assistance for instance, drug or violence issues, and to establish new positive network that can reduce the risk of future criminality. As you can see, it is two different sanctions, but they are quite similar. They are both, they have the two same basic elements, as you can see. The first element is the restorative meeting between the offender and the victim, where the offender can take the responsibility and see the consequences of the offense. And these meetings happen if both parties consent. The second element in both sanctions is the close follow-up in the municipality. And these bullets are examples of what the punishment can contain. The difference between the sanction is that the youth punishment is decided by a court, and it is a direct alternative to prison for minors. And it can last up to 3 years. So it's quite serious crimes. For instance, rape can get this kind of punishment. Youth follow-up is a prosecutor decision and can last up to 1 year. About 500 children receive this punishment yearly, and we see that this punishment have positive effect on the majority of young offenders. The relapse back to crime is relatively low in international context, and we also see that the young offenders who complete this sanction has stronger connection to important institutions as education and leisure after serving the sentence. But it's always a but, isn't it? Although it is very positive that we have introduced these punitive measures, we have research that concludes that they have some room for improvement, especially towards those youths or kids that commit the most serious crimes and who has the biggest problems in their lives. And that brings me to what we are currently working on today. My colleague from Finland, we see many of the same things there. Finland reflects the problems in Norway as well. Although the youth crime in Norway is relatively low, it has increased to some extent in recent years. And in our neighbor country, Sweden, it has exploded, and many are afraid that the trends and the gangs in Sweden also will take root in Norway. And when juvenile delinquency is discussed, it's quite heated, and it's a very political debate. And what we see is it often turns in the direction of a war on juvenile delinquency, strict penalties, and so on. And I think personally that the war on crime historically should prompt us to think differently. It doesn't help to lock children in and just hope that the juvenile delinquency will drop, I will say. And we have research showing that it's not totally random which children who commit crimes. It is mostly boys who drop out of school very early. They grow up in poor neighborhoods, and they lack positive male role models. In our mapping of these children, we also see that most of them has been known for the social welfare system since they were very young. But the paradox is, to say it a bit tabloid, they have to be old enough to get punished before they get proper help. But in order to succeed in prevention, I think we have to understand the root causes to juvenile delinquency, as stated by other speakers as well. In Norway, several voices in the political debate has pointed at the school system is not designed for boys, for instance. They argue that it explains the high dropout rates and feeling of exclusion and recruitment to criminal gangs. And we also have professional environments pointing out that young boys are victims of exploitation. All of these explanatory models are probably relevant for understanding the underlying causes to the delinquent behavior. And what we are concerned about today is that we will, more than before, direct additional effort towards the importance of early prevention. Identify these children before they reach an age where they typically begin committing crime. And based on the CRC, we try to influence the state to take measures that is evidence-based, because we have a lot of evidence-based methods which are suitable for achieving the purpose that is preventing crime in the first place. And the question is how to succeed with that. I think the combination of using this knowledge and speaking with the kids itself is the key factor here. The CRC gives children the right to be heard and spoken to in matters concerning them. And the question is, why is it so important? I think it's important because children possess knowledge and experience that we might not see as adults or professionals. And one consequence of not speaking with children when implementing new policies or implementing new preventive work is that we risk that we put in measures that might not work against youth crime. In Norway, the best interest of the child is implemented in the constitution. That means that they have to consider the best interest of the child in every new legislation and in all new policies, and they are also obligated to speak with children. That has, among other things, led to, in recent years, that we have gotten this legal obligation in all welfare laws, that they are forced to cooperate to better ensure the assistance for vulnerable children. And this has been a very important milestone for the Ombudsperson in Norway, and we are very excited to see how this will impact children's rights in the years to come. So what is the take-home message from my presentation? What we see in our work is that using the Convention on the Rights of the Child, criticism from the UN committees, and knowledge is a very effective tool to influence the state to take measures that actually work. We also have good experience in referring to best practice from other countries. In our dialogue with the national authorities, we have, for instance, been pointing at Denmark and Sweden and how they doing their preventive work. And we also see that this gives us a go in our influence work. And that's also why it's so important to come here and listen to each other and learn and take that knowledge back home and keep on doing a very important job. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you, and especially for the inspiring message at the end. And due to the limited time, I think we have a space for 1 or 2 questions, if anyone would like to ask. Okay, otherwise we will have a coffee break soon, and you can speak in person to all the speakers if any questions will come up during other presentations. So I think that now we can move to Iceland, and I would like to welcome Eyglo Hardardottir, who is the lead on the crime prevention, the National Commissioner of Icelandic Police. And Eyglo has a lot of experience. She is the lead on crime prevention at the Office of the National Commissioner of Icelandic Police, and emphasizing serious violence, including domestic violence, sexual offenses, and children's risk behavior. And she also was, during the COVID-19 pandemic, on the task force established by the Minister of Social and Children's Affairs and the Minister of Justice against domestic violence and violence against children. She has also been a member of the working group of the Minister of Justice on prevention and awareness raising against gender-based violence and sexual offenses, and the working group of the Minister of Social Affairs and the Labor Market on services due to violence, and the working group of the Minister of Health on improving health services due to sexual violence. So as you can see, it is a really broad experience, and today Eyglo will have a presentation on enhanced community policing and safer regions for the prosperity of children in Iceland.
Thank you, Kristina. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been really interesting so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the day. When I started my current job, leading a newly established crime prevention unit under the Office of the National Commissioner of the Icelandic Police, I had to ask, what is crime prevention? And this is the definition that I found and I've been working with from the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. And just to take you back a little bit, was that in my prior life, I was a politician. I was a member of parliament, and I was also, since this is somewhat of a déjà vu, Helen, is that I was also the Minister of Nordic Cooperation and Social Affairs and Housing, and that included Children's Protective Services and Social Services in Iceland. And I think it was probably in my first weeks in the ministry is that one of the senior advisors came in and said that I have a wonderful program that I'm hoping that you would finance. And it's so important to help young mothers, young single mothers, because studies have shown that impacts quite seriously the children growing up with young single mothers. And I sat there in my sofa and I looked at her and I said, what do you mean? I come from, my mother was 16 when she had me. I'm sitting here in the sofa, minister in a government. So is it just having a young mother? When I left politics, I decided to do something totally different before I started working for the police, and I decided to become a chef. And my shift manager, which is she's one of probably the best cooks in Iceland. She leads our national team. She had already told her story of coming to Iceland. I think she was 2 or 3 years old, came from the Philippines, and her mother married to Iceland. And she had a lot of problems growing up. And the question that I kept asking her, and is probably the question that I keep thinking about in my work, is that how come, having gone through all our institutional care, foster care, all the systems, the treatment programs that we had, how come she ended up being one of the best chefs, having a wonderful life, a good life, and she could have gone the other way? So I think that's basically the question that we are asking. Like, what can we do to help someone be there rather than here? And once I started actually in my job, the chief of Interpol came and visited, and I was telling him about this quote that I found and all the work that I was doing, and he basically said that, well, and I hope that he forgives me. He was saying that you have to keep in mind is that we all commit crime. Everyone here has probably driven too quickly someday, right? Is it? Okay. So how come that we focus on certain kind of crimes in all our efforts? So that's something that we have to keep in mind. What happened before? What are we working with? Rather than just saying that this kid is the problem. You have to look at the wider picture and keep in mind that we, probably all of us, have broken the law, maybe once or twice, or even 3 times. So these are the key goals that we're working on crime prevention. Kristina already mentioned the things that we're emphasizing in my unit. But the key thing that we look at is collaboration, that we need to work together and with other key actors. And in another conference that Kristina and I were in said that this is probably the most difficult thing that we can do is to get people to work together, right? So that's something that I'm doing every day. Some statistics. In Iceland, we basically are seeing similar numbers from year of all of our kids when we ask them whether they have experienced violence once or more often. This can be violence in school, it can be violence at home, it can be sexual abuse, domestic abuse, etc. So it's usually between 8 to 10%, and it hasn't changed a lot. This is something that I think is still quite important to show you, and probably the reason why I'm here is that the police in Iceland are the organization that's most likely to report children to Children Protective Services. And I understand that that's something that people get quite surprised about. And the reason for that is that we have been working really, really seriously for a long time now, since 2011-12, on what we call our domestic violence procedures. Is that when we go on call-outs, we work with the Children Protective Service on the call-outs. They come with us into the home or wherever the call-out or the incident happened. And if the victim agrees, we also call out the social services. And we look at our domestic violence procedures as preventive work with children. It's probably the major preventive work that we've been doing in Iceland when it comes to kid, is to implement our domestic violence procedures all around the world. Sorry, not the world, actually my commissioner does that, but around Iceland. And it's been a lot of work, because we had to get the CPS to come and work with us, the local government agreeing that they would work with us. So here you can see that we had a similar, reported youth violence going down, and then staying quite like in 2012, going down, and then we're getting more reports now. So does that mean, as you saw previously, does that mean that the violence is increasing, or is it staying the same? Are we getting more reports, but same level of violence? So if we do really well, do we get more reports? Does that mean there's more violence or not? So, and then we look at the individuals. And here you can see that the increase that we're seeing is 13 to 15, and this is quite similar to what Elina was showing us in Finland. And I think in a way that Thov was also talking about, the 13 to 15-year-olds. And these are secondary parties, victims, witnesses. And it was actually quite a big discovery in Iceland when we stopped looking at children as witnesses to domestic violence. And we started to see that, of course, it impacts them. And it's not such a long time ago. And so what to do? Collaboration. This is something that we are working on. We have a new legislation called the prosperity legislation. It has a little bit longer name, but this is what we call it, which allows us, or actually legally obligates us to cooperate when it comes to kids, if they or their parents request it. So that's a key thing. We do need a slightly a longer process if they do not want the support, but it's also allowed, and allows us to share information. If it's serious, they get a case manager, and that case manager is supposed to work with them. And what we are actually really interested within the police is to ensure that because this is with all kids that have concerns. And when we have great parents within the police, like when you have good families in a way, or have families that function, take care of their kids, are concerned, we are not so concerned with those families. We know that with our kids is that often the families don't want help. They're not requesting it. They don't want us to come to their homes. So that's what we're looking into. How can we actually ensure that they get the resources, they get the help that they need, and that we adapt our services to them. And to talk about the impact of domestic violence, about the background of those kids. Because I've been hearing a lot of wonderful things so far, but we're always just talking about the children themselves as individuals, a single unit, but they're not. I think that the former president, the first lady of the United States wrote a book saying it takes a village to raise a child. So doesn't that mean that we need to talk about the background, the families, the village of that kid? And so this is what we're doing now. We're trying to enhance community policing in safer regions. Just some of the reasons why we're trying to do that. We know that that's worked within domestic violence procedures. We know it's the key thing when it comes to barnahus. And now we also see that when we look to our neighboring countries, this is already Anchor. I love Google Translate, so I can actually read Finnish now. So same with Konfliktrådet that you mentioned, really great work that's been done there. I know that just the work that's been done in Sweden when it comes to building up local collaboration, and maybe when we look at Denmark, they're like skola, social, and police. These are all models that we can build on. But we're also looking towards the UK and Ireland and to Australia, to the United States on what we can do. And they all tell us we need to work more closer to our communities. And so this is my job, daily job. So you have 9 police districts, you have 6 constituencies, you have 64 municipalities. These are all the social services, the health sector. So we need to get every one of these working together. So that's quite a job. And then we need to ensure that within the police at least, that we have police officers that work with all these others that I showed you here. So through education and social programs within schools, general awareness raising, youth engagement initiatives, and just some photographs of the work that we've been doing. One of the things that we are working on is creating like a a toolkit for our community police officers. So they can go into schools, they can go into community centers, that they have a similar message. And a lot of the things that I'm looking at a moment comes from the UK. It comes from teachers association that actually teaches kids like how to actually live a life skills. And what I found is so interesting there is that they're through all the programs, whether it's on sexual abuse or bullying or gang violence or drug and alcohol, they're always talking about how we treat each other. Social cohesion, building a community, having an understanding for that we have differences, that we are different. So that's something that I think it will be a key message in our new toolkit. And just to show you, this is what the Home Office did in the UK. They created like a toolkit there for teachers, but also police officers to go in. And this story just tells you, if you don't belong to the group, and somebody then opens up the group, and this is actually on gang violence, how easy it can. These are your new friends to influence somebody, because if you don't fit in here, then maybe you can fit in here, even if it means breaking the law. So I think I even have extra minutes, so I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Eyglo, for very, I would say, comprehensive presentation. And I don't want to take a lot of time from the coffee break, so maybe we can leave all the questions for the coffee actually, and then we can move to our last presentation. And I would like to invite Natalia from Ministry of Justice in Latvia, who is an expert in policy making regarding prevention of juvenile justice. And currently Natalia is also working on a project of establishing a secure home for young people in Latvia. And she will tell us about the tendencies in juvenile delinquency prevention in Latvia. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kristina, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here and to hear about other colleagues, other countries' experience, and also for the chance to tell about what is going on in Latvia. I would like to start my presentation by telling you about this boy. His name is Maxims, and he's 13 years old. But unfortunately, now when I'm talking about him, I have to use the past tense because he died in January this year. On January the 11th, Latvian society faced an unprecedented tragedy when we found out that Maxims was killed. It happened in the town of Jūrmala. It is a resort town near the Baltic Sea. And this young boy and his friend, they were out, and they met a group of young people who lived in social care at that time, and they had a conflict. As a result, this boy was stabbed with a knife for several times in his stomach. And after that, the group of young people left. And they left this boy with his friend, and unfortunately, Maxims died even before the medics arrived. This is a huge tragedy for all of us, and the society was shocked and is still in shock. But another shocking thing about this case is the fact that the offender is also 13 years old. And in Latvia, we have heard about other countries, about the criminal liability age in Nordic countries. In Latvia, criminal liability age is 14, which means that in Latvia, this boy who committed this awful crime, he cannot be tried, he cannot be sentenced, he cannot be a criminal punishment cannot be imposed on him, which is a very, very serious and dangerous signal, which we are very afraid, which can be received by other high-risk young people, that you can do anything you want until you are 14 and there are no consequences. That is why it stirred a lot of emotions in Latvia, and we also had the debate about lowering the criminal liability age, and I hear that other colleagues from other countries also hear the same debate. We are not an exclusion. We had and still are having the same debate, and unfortunately the majority of people support lowering the criminal liability age and implementing more and more serious and grave punishment. But all of us who are here, we know that this might look as a very simple, fast solution. I call it fast and furious because it can be done fast, and this is a fast reaction, and this is completely normal, and we can understand that people are in shock, and we must do something to prevent such cases in the future. And this is the first which comes to mind. We should amend a law, but unfortunately amending a law does not solve the problem, because the problem is not the law itself. We are used to speaking about sustainability in different spheres of our lives. We speak about sustainable business, we speak about sustainable consumption, products, and so on. I invite experts from other countries to speak about sustainable preventive system, which means that we should focus on the causes, not the consequences. Right now, if we look in general at our legal system in Latvia, it is mostly based on looking what has happened, not why this has happened. Our aim is to change this focus of attention and to introduce, to replace punitive system with supportive system, which means that we have to introduce interventions with long-term effect. Because if we send a young person to a jail, for example, and do not work with the reasons why the crime has been committed, in several years we have the same person coming back from the jail, coming back to society with the same problems and maybe even worse. So this is the main tendency in Latvia. I would say that we are trying to debate, we're trying to persuade our policymakers that sustainability of preventive system lies in interventions within which we are working with the reasons why the crime has been committed. And of course, we understand that such changes do not happen overnight, and we need much time, and we need even much more patience to achieve our goal. But fortunately, we are not in the 0 point. We are in the beginning of this process, but we still have very many projects and initiatives in Latvia which are aimed at this aim, achieving a sustainable preventive system. And today I want to talk about two of these projects. One project is being planned, and the other project is being implemented already. The first project, which is being planned, is being carried out by the governmental institution. It's the Ministry of Justice of Latvia, and I'm very proud to be a coordinator of this project. And this is this project is I don't think it's working. This is establishing a secure. This is establishing a secure home for adolescents in Latvia. Right now, if we get back to Maxim's case, which I told you in the beginning about, in fact, the only alternative, the only possibility how we would be able to isolate a young offender for some period of time would be a juvenile jail. But as I mentioned, this young offender is not a subject to criminal liability. That is why there is no place, there is no secure institution or secure placement where this person could be placed. And in the beginning of this conference, we also heard that isolation itself is not enough, and isolation could be even damaging if it is not combined with other meaningful interventions. That is why our aim to introduce a new intervention, a secure home for young people who are at very high risk behavior, who endanger themselves or other people, and they are not only placed in this secure home, but they are also worked with, and we are planning a therapeutical environment in this institution. I will tell you briefly about just in a minute. What have we done so far? We have been studying a lot. We have been to secure placements all over Europe in many different types of placements. We have been to the Eyglo House in the United Kingdom, you can see it here. We have been to our neighbors, Estonians. We have visited the Marjamaa school in Estonia. We have also been to Sweden, to Hässleholm institution, and the last one institution we visited was Germany, and it is Martinestift institution in Germany. What we want to do, we want to introduce a solution which is based on knowledge, on experience, and on evidences. That is why it was very important for us to see how these institutions work in other countries, to talk with experts, and to decide, most importantly, which solutions, which elements of all these placements will work in Latvia. Well, we have to adapt this solution to Latvian social reality, so it will be efficient. The institution itself, the secure home for children, as I mentioned, we want to create a therapeutical environment, which means that not only the place will be, and everyday life will be with therapeutical effect, which means mutual respect and a very clear daily structure for a young person, and studying as a part of a daily routine, which also has a therapeutical effect. But we also will employ therapy specialists who will work with these children, both individually and in groups. And right now we are also working on providing security solutions and working on the security solutions, which mean both static and dynamic security solutions, because this establishment should be secure both for children and for those who work with these children. And of course, what the main idea of this secure home for young people is trauma-based approach. This is what I was talking about previously. We want this intervention to be with long-lasting effect, and research show that 95% of people who commit serious crimes have been traumatized in his or her life previously. So we have to understand why this young person has done what he or she has done, and then we will work with the causes, not the consequences. We are still planning. We have started to our work on creating the environment, and of course this is a very huge and time and resource consuming project, and I really hope that in a couple of years I will be able to share our experience with you and to tell that our secure home for young people is working and is working well. The second project I would like to tell you about is being implemented by non-governmental organization. I know that there are many colleagues from Latvia here today, and I really owe you an apology that I don't have a chance to talk about all your great initiatives and ideas about working with children. I can tell only about one of the projects, and I have chosen the one which my heart belongs to. And this project is called the Forest Project, and it is being implemented by non-governmental organization in Latvia, SOS Children Villages, with cooperation in cooperation with Riga City Municipality. And it has been implemented based on German intervention in cooperation with German NGO called Wellenbrecher. So our colleagues from SOS Children Villages, they cooperated with German colleagues and adapted this intervention in Latvia. So what is it about? This picture you can see here basically shows the main idea of this intervention. This project is aimed at taking the young person out of his environment and placing him or her in different environment. And this is one-to-one intervention, which means that there is one child and there is one mentor, or maybe a mentor and his spouse, but there are no other children, including the children of the mentor. And this child is sent to a rural environment to live in a mentor's house for 2 years. And the main requirement, according to this, while talking about this environment, is that this place should be rather far from big towns. So basically, that is why it's called the Forest Project, that it is somewhere in the middle of somewhere, but the child cannot access all the risk factors which could be accessed in towns or cities. And this project is still in its trial phase. It has been implemented since September last year, but now we see that it is working really, really well. I can tell you about one example, a boy who is 15. He was enrolled in this program last year. And he has been using different kinds of substances since he was 6 years old. Drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, everything we can imagine. And when he was enrolled in this program, of course, he was not allowed to use drugs, alcohol. But the team of experts who work within this project and who decide on everything, on every issue connected with behavioral problems of this or that child, they decided to allow this boy to smoke, to keep on smoking. It was not easy for a mentor to buy cigarettes and give the cigarettes to a 15 years old. But the psychiatrist said that this is a reduced risk approach, and otherwise this child would come across the huge shock. His organism maybe would not be able to accept this new way of life. But after 5 months in this program, this boy has said that he would like to quit smoking. And he has tried skiing for the first time in his life. He has discovered Lego. He didn't know what it means. He has started doing sports. and he's doing really, really well. So this project basically is aimed at showing young people that there is another way of living their lives. And this project is our way of saving these children. And if we can save even one child, I think that our huge effort is really worth this work and all our efforts. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Natalia, for the practical examples of what work can be done with children. And I think I have to give the floor back to Helen and Trugile.